In this video, I'm gonna show you exactly what you need to do to become a weight loss coach and get clients to lose weight, starting with the real reason people drop fat and keep it off successfully, and ending with why none of this matters without the one simple strategy I discovered through helping thousands of people lose weight. Starting with number one, energy balance. See, in order to get someone to lose weight, you need to figure out how much food they should be eating. This is the most important part, much more important than what they eat, which might actually surprise you. But it's the main reason why this guy, a super smart nutrition professor, could eat Twinkies and protein powder and actually lose weight. Because he knew exactly how much food, specifically the calories coming from food, he needed to eat to lose weight. And the key here is figuring out maintenance energy levels so that you know how much food someone needs to eat to lose weight. And there's a few ways to do this, and the first way would be to measure it using some sort of expensive laboratory equipment, but that's probably not something you have at home. But there is something you can get your hands on, and that is calculations. Which brings us to method number two, which is a theoretical way. You can estimate someone's energy expenditure or how many calories they're burning using a calculation. There are several different calculations out there, like the Harris-Benedict equation or the Mifflin-St. Jeor. Some of these are more accurate, some of them are less accurate, and some might require specific pieces of information that you might not have access to. But that's okay, because a calculation is just gonna give us a starting point, which we'll use to gauge how many calories someone is burning on a daily basis. Some of these calculations won't always be accurate, especially on an individual level. In many cases, the calculation will spit out a number that has a discrepancy that's much larger than what someone is actually eating right now, which can be problematic because if someone wants to lose weight and they come to you to do that and you put them on a level of food that actually makes them gain weight, you will be in trouble. Which is why I love this next strategy way more for weight loss clients. And this is something that we call the factual way. The factual way entails finding the energy intake that maintains someone's body weight over a period of time. What you do is get someone to track their food intake using something like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer to calculate on average how many calories they are consuming. Ideally, you do this for around 5 days, including one weekend day when someone's out of their normal routine. Through this period, if their body weight stays the same within 1 to 2 pounds, they're at weight maintenance, which means generally the amount of food that they're eating is in balance with the amount that they're burning. And if they lose weight, which they generally will when they start to be mindful, they're already in a negative energy balance. Finding this level of energy balance or energy maintenance is super important because all individuals are different, and this is really gonna vary from person to person. So if you want to be able to help people lose weight, then you need to be able to estimate this so you can create a plan that allows them to be in a calorie deficit, which we'll talk about next. What you wanna do with the calculated energy expenditure and the actual energy expenditure is to take the average of the two as a starting point for their energy balance. Based on those two numbers in the last two steps, here's what you wanna do. Between the calculated number and the factual number, you wanna take the lowest number and use it as the actual number for energy balance. Unless there's a huge discrepancy, then I would take the average between the two. With this number, we roughly know someone's energy expenditure, and we can start in the next step to set them up on a calorie deficit. Now, a calorie deficit is what actually causes weight loss. When you're consuming less energy than you're burning over an extended period of time, this is what allows you to actually drop weight. Your body will start to tap into fat stores and use that energy to actually make up the deficit. Now, it isn't going to be perfect. It's not always going to be fat. Weight loss, which can be measured on the scale, is always going to be a combination between fat and lean body mass, including muscle mass and water. Generally speaking, most people can start at a 10% calorie deficit, lower than what we calculated in the first step being their energy maintenance, in order to start losing weight. So if that energy balance or energy expenditure calculated in step one was around 2,000 calories, we would subtract 200 off, which is 10%, getting them to eat around 1,800 calories in order to start to lose weight. This is without a doubt the most important thing someone needs to do to lose weight. In most cases, making up this deficit should be done through diet and the actual calories someone's consuming. Because if you spend any amount of time actually measuring the calories you burn through exercise, you'd realize that it's not that much. And 200 calories burned through exercise can easily be erased through what we eat, even through healthy foods that are actually high in calories. Now, the easiest way to actually get someone to stay in a calorie deficit and to eat there is to get them to track what they eat. Getting someone to track what they eat towards a calorie target, which in this case, in our example, is around 1,800 calories, is the easiest way to control and manage the variable that has the biggest influence on weight loss, which is gonna be this calorie deficit. Now, keep in mind, this is how weight loss actually happens. It doesn't mean staying in a calorie deficit is easy to do, but the more control we can have over the process, the better. Now, if you set up these numbers and someone is already tracking and they're still not losing weight, you need to make sure that they're actually tracking accurately, which I'll do in a video I'll link up at the end of this video. Now, I know this may be hard to believe, but this is how someone actually loses weight. If you want to lose physical tissue on your body and drop fat or even muscle, which in most cases people don't want to do, but if you want to drop actual fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. What you eat in your food choices actually matters much less than how much you're actually eating, which is also the reason why many diets work. Keto, low carb, high fat, or even high carb, low fat, the cabbage soup diet, packaged foods, and even the Twinkie and protein powder diet, they all work because of a calorie deficit. Now, someone's ability to actually stick with the diet and achieve success and also improve their overall health will be influenced by their food choices and what their food is made of, which we're gonna talk about next. Number 3, protein and the macronutrients. Now, the calories in our food are actually supplied by the macronutrients, which are the large components of our food that we measure in gram, protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And when it comes to weight loss, calories are king. But where these calories come from will actually influence our weight loss and where the weight comes from. So we want to allot a certain amount of calories to each of the macronutrients to set someone up for success. Protein is gonna be the most important macronutrient because in a calorie deficit, when you're looking to lose weight, you're essentially in forced starvation, which means your body's gonna try to make up this difference in calories through its own energy stores. And it has muscle, which is a very expensive tissue to keep around, and it wouldn't mind breaking that down to make it much easier to maintain your weight. But we can hack this process by eating more protein, somewhere between 1.5 to 3.0 grams per kilogram of body weight. In my experience working with thousands of weight loss clients, most people aren't even close to this range. So we wanna work them up towards that. In our example of the person eating 1,800 calories in a calorie deficit, they're probably around 70 kilos. So an optimal level of protein for them in a calorie deficit will be anywhere between 105 to 210 grams per day. Ideally, we find a suitable number to start with and shoot for that on a daily basis. Making sure that they're eating enough protein is super important. So we start with that number, allot a certain amount of calories to that within the deficit, and then set the other 2 macronutrients, which are gonna be carbohydrates and fat. Carbohydrates are our body's preferred and main energy source. And when you're losing weight, you wanna make sure that there's enough energy around to still perform exercise as well as daily activities. Whereas eating enough dietary fat is super important for optimal health and function. Ideally, we want a moderate level of both of these macronutrients while we're still in a deficit, which for carbohydrates means anywhere between 2 to 5 grams per kilogram. And for dietary fat, we're talking between 0.5 to 1.5 grams per kilogram. How we make up the rest of these calories really depends on someone's food preferences, while making sure we're not going too low or below the ranges for either of those macronutrients. Now, keeping someone in a calorie deficit and making sure those calories are coming from the right macronutrients are the 2 most important things someone needs to do to lose weight. But the timeline of how this occurs is also very important. Here we're talking about the speed at which someone loses weight. Obviously, this will have a lot to do with the calorie deficit we set in step number 2. But again, we're just trying to be as accurate as we can be in a somewhat inaccurate science, and it doesn't always play out like that. Sometimes clients can lose weight much quicker and even much slower than expected. When they lose weight too fast, here's what happens. Again, when we lose weight, it's always gonna be a combination of actual fat tissue as well as lean body mass. And if this process happens too quickly, more than 0.5 to 1.0 kilograms per week, a client is more likely to see that weight come from lean body mass. When done properly, and when I mean properly, I mean when done at the right speed, they're losing weight gradually, as well as eating enough protein and doing some resistance training. A client should lose weight like this. For every 4 pounds that comes off the scale, 3 pounds of it should be fat and 1 pound of it should be muscle. There's usually no way of getting around this. If we do things quicker and they lose weight twice as fast, it's probably likely to come from 4 pounds of fat and 4 pounds of muscle, which depending on how overweight someone is, can be problematic. Outside of aesthetic reasons and someone not just wanting to become a smaller version of themselves, losing muscle can impact the amount of energy that you burn and make you lose strength, which is not great. As well as the faster you go, the more prone you are to overeating at the end of the diet. And intense restriction and more weight loss in shorter periods of time can lead to overeating. And restrict binge cycles can also be problematic. So we wanna make sure our weight loss clients are on the right timeline, which for most clients is between 0.5 to 1 kilograms per week or 1 to 2 pounds per week, or 0.5 to 1% body weight loss per week. And finally, none of this matters without this, which is our last point, which is accountability. We've talked about some super sciencey stuff today, which is important because we want to know the real reason why someone loses weight. Because when we understand that, we have better control over how it actually happens. But none of this is going to happen unless they actually apply that. And the best way to get someone to apply this is to set them on a plan they can follow and hold them accountable through the process. What we've done in this video is set up the structure someone needs to follow. But this structure needs to be filled with the actual habits and actions which are going to allow them to stick to things. In the Dr. Mark method, we call this structure and habits. And it's the best of both worlds when it comes to successful weight loss. And that's why when it comes to weight loss, I encourage most people to seek out a weight loss coach, or specifically a nutrition coach who helps people lose weight, because they understand the science of dieting and how it actually happens, and they're more likely to see success long term. And that's it, folks. Today we reviewed how people actually lose weight. I showed you how to estimate someone's energy expenditure so you could set them up on a calorie deficit, have a better understanding where those calories are coming from through the right macronutrients, as well as appropriate timelines so they don't lose weight too fast. And we wrapped it up with the thing that matters the most, which is adherence and application and accountability through a coach. Now, as great as all those tips are, if you're really serious about starting a nutrition or weight loss coaching business, the next thing I'll have you do is check out this video I've linked out right here. I talked a lot about nutrition tracking and getting your clients to track accurately. So here are some of my FitnessPal hacks to do just that. So check it out now and I'll see you in the next video.